We'll work it out.
Which I'm kind of glad we haven't really caught up too much here. We can kind of do that on the Streameroo.
Yeah, well, it's been a week since we've talked, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're now, I think it's showing live. Yes, we are live.
We're live
on the YouTube.
That's insane. That's insane. Let me get us to the better image there.
There we go. Now we're rocking it.
So Hugo, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. I've had a really great week. How are you doing?
Really well, really well. It's been an interesting week. Been quite busy, even busy into the weekend. As I think you noticed, I was scrambling onto the broadcast, and I'd like to point out we're only 2 minutes late.
I think that's acceptable for our no fans right now. I think so. Yeah. We're polishing up on our schedule and the whole regime and how we do this. So I think at the moment, we still got our kind of training wheels on, haven't we? We can get away with shitty excuses like that for the time being.
Well, I think from my end, I've made some technical improvements to my setup. I've got a better mic, which I'm curious to see how this works out. And then
it sounds really good. I think it sounds great. I don't know what I sound like in comparison. I'll have to watch it, but you sound great.
I think you're crystal clear, and it's weird because this mic, it wasn't the most expensive mic, but it reviewed well for dunces like me, and it fit the bill. We have no viewers, so therefore I don't need like a high end microphone. But I just wanted something that was good, that wasn't too high end. But also, I think I've sorted out my camera. Because Nick uses my my webcam, which I used last week. So I was able to get the app to work now better. And I think the issue I had so I'm using my mobile phone. I didn't have it set up on USB. So in other words, I had it going via the Wi-Fi. So I think I have a more stable connection. And I have this lovely little vignette behind me too. So I'm more clear. And the thing that's great about this is we have all of this good technology and nobody there to watch it yet.
Well, mate, like you say, we got these training wheels on. So when we get into practice, this is practice time, isn't it? We're refining what we're doing. We're finding our flow, our style, our communication, and what people like. And God, you just wait. It's going to be awesome in a few months. We'll get in there.
Keep plugging. I think. I do really look forward to these times, and I kind of like that we haven't had much time to talk in the week. Because I think we've had some things that have happened. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was, how did you feel after the last episode? And the only reason I bring that up is I felt like it was quite a physically difficult thing to do, to talk about that. And I found myself thinking about my behaviors and who I am, and I felt quite vulnerable for a bit, knowing that there was some people I know that are watching it. I know that I gave my brother the link. He was asking me about it, and I was talking to him. So I was a combination of nervous and apprehensive, but kind of free and I think happy about it. It was a very weird week following that.
Yeah, mate. It's quite funny you say that, because I think I share pretty much all those feelings. I was the most nervous I've been for doing any of our podcasts, and including this week, I feel very relaxed, really, like instantly. And I think it was because it really mattered to me. Not only am I putting myself out there and basically telling my true story, which I'm happy to do, but you're doing it to complete strangers and maybe people that know you and not too well in the background. So there was something that I felt quite apprehensive about that, and crossed over with the fact that I really wanted to do a good job, that if there were anyone watching that was suffering from something similar to what I've gone through, or perhaps even what you've gone through, then we can somehow add some value and try and help them in some way. So there was this pressure of performing, rather than right now I'm just talking to you, I'm having a catch up with my mate. Whilst last week there was a bit more on the lines.
Technical difficulties here. I'm not sure if that's me or Hugh that's gone out.
So camera on. Can you hear me all right, Sean?
Yep. I don't know if that was you or me. Yep, I see you back on my screen.
Yeah, the internet I think is okay for here. So I'm not sure, but I could hear you the whole time.
We'll find out on playback. So you were saying not the same, I think was the last thing I heard.
What was that? Sorry, not the same.
I thought you said not the same. It was breaking up.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I think I might have been saying, no, I don't know.
Well, it's okay. It was breaking up a bit on my end, so I might have been taking a stab at what you were saying.
Okay, so you're lying. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't say inadvertently. I'm just giving it a go. It's kind of the same thing when you forget someone's name and you kind of guess at it.
Okay. I don't play that game. I like to be honest and, and open, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't judge you for it.
You sure can.
To wrap it up, Sean, on that front, I felt like you, like a weight was lifted at the end of it. I actually felt like I'd been through something.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I felt really good having done that and put that out there. So, it was great.
I couldn't agree more. And I wanted, if anybody does watch it at some point, I want somebody to be able to connect with it, or at least help them maybe identify certain things that are going on. It's something where you just sort of think about where do you go from here. And I think the one thing I wanted to take from that is just to speak very honestly and openly about things that are important to me and personal to me, which is kind of counterintuitive because I'm speaking, in a broadcast. But the thing I really liked about that episode, as sort of one of our early broadcasts, is I think it was because it was something we believed in, something we felt strongly about, and something we identified with. I felt like it was the most natural we were on sort of this sort of platform.
I thought so. Yes and no. What I would disagree for myself is that I find I was probably thinking too much about what I was saying. So it was very authentic what I was saying, but I was in my head for sure during the episode through most of it, thinking about what I wanted to get across. And actually, I looked back at my notes and I missed some important points I wanted to put across. So I was like, shit, because I was just probably just getting in my head and worrying about the expectation so much. But I thought it was a very real podcast. So with that being said.
Yeah. I think I felt myself just sort of unloading everything and getting everything out there. And I just when I got on there, for me, it was just all about just sharing it. And I think from my end, my anxiety was rather tepid in comparison. It's your standard, which I think is important to share, but it's your standard run of the mill anxiety. And I think that made it a bit easier for me, or at least that I felt that way.
Yeah, no, that's fair, mate.
So what's been going on with you this week, mate?
I've had a top-notch week. I mean, they don't come around, all too regularly or too infrequently, but it's just been a great week all round. It kind of ticked a multiple number of boxes. I think I mentioned on a previous podcast that I'm looking to get into the property game, property investing, try and diversify some of the investments I've made, as well as create a new business and get freedom for me and Lou, and looking to helping some of my friends and family out as well. And I've been working quite hard on this for a while, and I'm yet nowhere. We've got money ready to invest, but it felt like I'm making progress. But people, yourself or other people might be able to relate to this. You're putting loads of effort in, and yet the actual net result of it is nothing's changed. And people would say, so, have you got a property? Like, no, but I've done a lot of work building up to it. And actually, that's still the case. So I don't have a property. However, I've just been inundated with people coming to me with investment opportunities. And it's felt like bloody Dragon's Den, mate, or Shark Tank, as they call it in the US, where I've got people coming to me, pitching to me. And I've got a very clear set of what I'm looking to invest in. And I've been able to communicate that better as well. I've built some really great relationships. And it's to the point now where there are so many potential opportunities. I don't have enough money to counter all of those opportunities, and they're opportunities that meet my metrics. So it's great. So that's kind of one front. The business front has been, I've kind of had a really positive week off the back of having a couple of, to be frank, pretty shitty weeks, feeling like a little bit, God, is this really worth it? And on a personal level, me and Lou have had a really great week. She was off. She was off ill. We thought it might be something a bit more serious. She had a temperature and headaches, and I was like, oh God, is this something coming? And then she was on the toilet. I'll put it that way. So she was stuck to the toilet for just over 24 hours. And we thought, oh no, is this something serious? And because of the nature of her job, she wasn't allowed in, and she was actually told she had to have a COVID test, and was off for a week. And actually, within like 36, 48 hours, you start to feel better again. So I've had a good kind of 3 or 4 days with her, more than I normally would, and we just had a really great time. We went down. We have a river about 200 meters from us, and I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to go in the river. And I just, this might not sound that crazy, to be honest, or it may, I don't know. But I did my workout and I thought, I'm just going to go and jump in the river. And it was amazing. It was really? Just the cold sensation, connected with nature. There were people down there. And because it was early in the morning, they were very chilled and cool. And we were chatting. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you get up and you're freezing, but it's warm and it's invigorating. And I came back and I said, told Lou about it. And she said, oh God, I don't know, it's a bit cold. I was like, you will love it. And I kind of like encouraged her to come with me, and I went straight back down there with her. And long story short, she was like buzzing from it, absolutely loved it, because she loves the seaside and loves water. And we've been in there multiple times a day all week. And for the viewers will know that are watching this live, especially this week has been really hot. Like we've had like late 20s, it's been sweltering in England. So to have like a river a couple hundred meters away that you're jumping in a couple of times, connecting with nature, seeing some cool people. It's been great, mate. So no, there's been a couple of other things, but it's been a really solid week across loads of different areas in my life. So I won't try and bore you or too many viewers with all my positivity and loveliness. How was your week, mate? It sounded like there was a bit more going on with yours. Up and down.
Yeah, I think this week it was all pretty much building up to Friday, which was a day off where I did it's supposed to be my full day of golf training.
Of course. I'm looking forward to hear about this.
So this is very much like, actually very much parallels your investment piece, because I just got back from playing golf today, where you put a lot of time and investment into it and you don't feel like you get much out of it. But you can kind of see the building blocks are there. And it ended up being a half day because this was a bit interesting from a business perspective. And I don't think he's going to be watching this, and I think he's a lovely guy. Thursday night, we had storms. Thursday night, we had forecast of storms on Friday.
Yes.
Right? So Thursday night, and it was a 6-hour day-long piece, I get a call from the guy. I'm not going to say his name because he's actually... which I got recommended to this guy. He actually has like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, or 80,000 or something.
Oh, wow.
So he's, and he is a proper elite. Like after working with him, he is incredible. But he called me the night before and he said, look, it looks like it's going to be stormy. You know, the second half of the day is on the course. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do the full day. And I said, okay, well, why don't we just do 3 hours and see how it is? And if I need to come back, I need to come back. You know, I'm laid back. So later that night, I got a message saying, yeah, definitely we're going to do the half day. It looks like it might be stormy. And I don't mind. I'm thinking, you know, I'm paying good money for this. I don't want to compromise the second half of the day. I want it to be good. Makes sense to me. So I got down there. It was about an hour and 40 minutes to get down there. And we started about 15, 20 minutes late. So I was waiting for him. And the actual day was brilliant. And just, I'm not going to bore you with the technicalities of it, but
thank God. Okay. Yeah.
But it was interesting because he measured my dimensions to get a better idea of what the best swing would be for me. So there's certain things that to my eye would be wrong, but actually they're not wrong because, you know, I have short arms and a long body. I'm 6'3", but my arms are the length, you know, of somebody who's 5'10". T-Rex. And that was, and my friend said that when I mentioned that to him, who I play with, and he said, yeah, you're like me, you're a T-Rex. So apparently he was the same. So we get to the end of the lesson. I'm getting a bit tired, but I'm still, you know, and he's distracted. I can tell he's a bit distracted at the end of the lesson. It's coming up to 12. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we didn't start till 20 minutes late. We're doing 3 hours, so we're going to go 20 minutes late. And he was really committed until the last like 10, 20 minutes. And I have total buy-in to him. But he was just sort of like, well, look, I think you're tired. You know, why don't we pick this up? And I'm like, fine. Yeah, no worries. I'm getting tired. I was missing a few shots and I was starting to kind of come to my limit of what I could learn and physically what I could do.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was selling me on that idea. And I'm like, yeah, fine. You don't have to. Yeah, that's fine. Let's wrap it up and I'll bounce. And I could see him looking over his corner and there was a kid waiting so he had this whole end bay. And I could see this kid waiting, looking on his phone, and he was waiting for me to move on. Now I had booked the full day and he must have booked either booked this person in thinking we're only going to do a half day, or maybe he had double booked me and had this kid coming in the half day, whatever. I wasn't that uptight about it because I'd already confirmed I'm coming back for half a day. And in hindsight, and it was just a very weird departure because it was almost like I didn't say goodbye. It was, you could tell he probably felt a bit weird. Like, I don't want Sean to see this kid waiting and I don't know how to deal with it. And in reality, if he had said to me, look, tomorrow, it's going to be stormy. I can't guarantee anything. It's probably best to do lessons under the cover. Can we just do a half day? And if it's okay, I'm going to book somebody else in for that half day because I can't work with you. Yeah, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
But it just sort of left me with a funny taste in my mouth because we did all this great work. And it was just like, I don't know. I just felt like at that stage, for the money that I spent, it was like, I don't know. I felt like an inconvenience the last 10 to 15 minutes. And that had a bit of a sour taste. But if I put that aside, actually, I got some great results out of the day. I'm going to go back again. I'm really happy with it. But just from a business perspective, I felt like it was a bit weird. It kind of put a bit of a sour taste in my mouth on that.
Yeah, it's a real shame from his perspective. In some ways, it would be great if he was listening or got this feedback. And I'd probably encourage you to speak to him about it at the end of your second session, because you've got a quality session that you've been looking forward to. You've invested in time and money, and you're using this guy who's got a great reputation, and the session itself was great. And it's just a real shame that from starting it 20 minutes late and then him kind of dying off on the 20, it doesn't matter. In my point of view, from a customer service perspective, it matters not that you're getting tired and missing shots and doing shit, frankly, and that he really needs to step up and be there as a coach to try and, get through that with you on that basis and try and finish it off on a high. Especially in seeing the fact he's going to see you again. Like, maybe if he's like, I'm never going to see this guy again. He's flying back home tomorrow. Who gives a shit about him? Not that that's the right thing, but it seems it's a bit of a shame that customer service wasn't quite at the level that you and I might expect, and it's just taken the shine off what was quality. What sounds like it was a quality day, and you got a huge amount from it.
Yeah, I think, and I sort of tucked and ran because I just thought, look, I don't really care that he had another lesson after me. It didn't bother me one bit.
Yeah.
So I just, I left it quick, and I don't even mind that it was a bit weird. It's more, I paid decent money for this. We started late, and even to say, look, Sean, you're tired. I know that, this isn't quite the full 3 hours. We'll make that up the next time. But I think part of the problem was he hadn't managed my expectations early doors to say he had another lesson coming after me. And I could see some people being funny about that. And the one thing I give him a bit of latitude on is I think about this because this is what you and I do, or you did more so before. But what you and I do now, it's messaging, it's communicating, it's managing expectations, objection handling.
Yeah.
And it's, look, tomorrow's going to be rubbish. I have another kid that wants to come in. Do you mind if we do 2-3 hour sessions? Because I don't want to be stuck on the course and have it raining because, you paid good money and we want to give you exactly what you want. Yeah, sounds great. I would have been fine. And then if I would have seen the kid, I'd be like, oh, there he is. Let me get out of your way so you can get going. We'll make up the 20 minutes later. I would have even done the work for him, but it's not a big thing. I'm not going to let it bother. He's a decent enough guy, and I'm not going to judge him on that. I may give him the feedback after the lesson. It's one of those things where I'm not going to see him again, and I don't know how important that is to me to share that. I kind of feel like that's his responsibility to worry about, but I don't know. I'll consider it.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe, I don't know, maybe where we differ slightly, that I would give him the feedback because it's my responsibility. It's up to him whether or not he chooses to do anything with it. But if I was a paying customer, I'd just say, just so you're where I want, or even after, like by email or pick up the phone or something, even probably better face to face when you're right there. But just to give him that feedback, the session was awesome. I learned so much. I just want to make a point that it was a little bit of a shame how it ended on that first day for X and X reason, and or you turning up late, not mentioning it, and the kid was there. And I think we could have avoided some of that, but I'd say the content itself was superb, and I would happily recommend your services to any other golf buddy.
Yeah, I think what I might do, I just want to make, because part of me feels like it might be me reading too much into things. So that's kind of why I want to, it's not that big a deal to me. I think I'm going to wait and see how the next lesson goes. And if I feel inclined to, I might even, I don't mind. Like if he was being an absolute dick, I have no problem confronting anybody about that. But it was sort of like,
yeah,
I'm taking some creative license here with what I think is going on in his head or what I think the outcome was. I mean, that kid could very well have just been popping in to ask him a question or whatever. So I think when it comes down to that sort of thing, I like to make sure that I know that I'm being, shortchanged, and I haven't even finished the product yet. So we'll see what happens. But that pretty much was my week, and like I said, we played today, and that's it. Now we build up to this stream, which I've been very much looking forward to all week.
Yeah. So what we covering today, then, mate?
Well, I thought it might be sensible to look at life after lockdown, which I think we discussed very briefly, because you and I are in the United Kingdom, which is experiencing a bit of a lull now. Things are starting to go down. There's been some things in the news recently with people cramming the beaches.
Yeah.
And I think I also wanted to share some of my experiences with what's going on in America and get your take on that.
Cool.
And I think for me, I want to start off with really, what is your life going to change from how it was in March, April to, let's say, June, July, August? Do you see any changes right now for you?
No. My industry, I've been very fortunate that it's not been impacted because I have a publishing business. So with people on lockdown, if anything, you'd think, well, there's maybe more people open to reading books. I wouldn't say my sales have particularly spiked, but they definitely haven't dropped off either, to the extent that I haven't gone to seek any financial help at all. I mean, I was encouraged that I could, but I just didn't feel, not that I'm like playing the big I am here, but I think it's better to keep that for people that need it. I didn't need it. My business has done okay, so got to acknowledge that that's a big factor. I work from home. So it's not like less people seeing me or anything like that. I communicate online by email, video calls and stuff anyway. So that hasn't changed too much. From the property side of it, I've got a mentoring program. Yeah. So post lockdown, we'll be going in person to do these training sessions, which is going to be awesome. Rather than at the moment, it's 50 people on a Zoom call and we're kind of putting inputs in, which I don't think is great. So that will change for the better. But as far as a lifestyle spending and things like that, I don't think it's going to change too much for me personally. How about you?
I think the only thing that crops up is, so living in the United Kingdom and being from the East Coast of the United States, I'm a bit more. So for me, my personal lifestyle isn't changing much. I work from home. My wife is working from home moving forward. But it's things like how we manage our travel and our holiday. Because the last time we took a holiday, I don't know if you had any holiday planned or if you had any trips planned. We very much had trips planned. We were supposed to go to a wedding in April that was canceled in Florida. I haven't seen my family since September, which is kind of annoying, which is maybe why I wanted to discuss this, because for me, this is a bit more of an emotive issue because it's preventing me from seeing my family. So for me, it's how are we going to? So even right now, we're planning we were supposed to go to the Open. Again, this is back to golf, and that is not my intention.
Here we go again.
But my wife and I were going to go to the U.S. Open. We were going to take our caravan down there, and that was canceled, because the U.S. Open's canceled. So we still had the time off, and we booked somewhere else. And it just so happens the places are starting to open, but we're starting to think about our trip in New York. Whether that will happen. Because right now in America, it is an absolute dumpster fire. I don't know if you have any familiarity with what's going on over there.
In truth, mate, I know that we're big fans of the Joe Rogan podcast. I watch some other US podcasts as well, which talk about naturally current events. So I kind of hear it via that. I avoid the news at all costs. So via podcasts, and then actually your post I saw on Facebook not so long ago. Your personal post with I think it was either the rate of deaths or the rate of cases. I can't quite remember, but it was, US were miles winning, as I think you might have put it in the global sphere. So
let me see if I can find that one, because I was going to bring up the current, which that's a good idea. Let me bring up that and share that.
As you're bringing that up, Sean, I'll quickly say as well. When you asked me that question, I was looking at it from I just automatically to the work perspective, which doesn't change. But you brought up a great point. My mum lost her husband, my dad, in January. She lost her brother-in-law in Feb, and then her younger brother in March. She's had a horrendous year. So she's now on her own in a 4-bed house, struggling and not feeling great. You're asking, how you doing? She's like, not great. And I can't go and see her. So, I'm over 3 hours away. So I'm really looking forward to getting back up there for a week and try to help her out with some stuff. So I've been able to speak over the phone, but it just, as you know, mate, it ain't the same as as being in person.
And I think it's interesting because I'll share a conversation I had with somebody last night about this via the Facebook. And I find I'm still going back there to just sort of chuck in my 2 cents. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago. I just feel like that there's so much craziness in this world. And I feel like I'm being quite egotistical or arrogant saying this, as if I'm the be all and end all of knowledge. And I'm not. I'm not that intelligent. I'm not that informed. However, I do have a different point of view. And I think sometimes when I read the stuff that's being posted, there's no real investigation going to it. So it's things that are obviously there to get you to react, to get you on side. And I feel like I'm just going to post not my opinion. I'm just going to, invariably my opinion is going to be there, but I'm posting other data points that are saying this is what.
I've just lost your sound, mate. I don't know if you've realized that or not, but I've just lost your sound. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay, mate. I'll just fill this gap as you try and...
Hello?
Oh, wait a minute. I heard you. Yes, you're back.
I wonder if I tapped something.
You said about filling data points.
Yeah, and yeah, so I just want to provide the data just so there's some counter or some context that's contrary to, let's say, some emotive post that doesn't really have much foundation to it. And let me just share what I shared last week, because I was actually able to put it on a screenshot, so we couldn't. I'm just going to pump that up. So this was the post I put up last week, and this is the United States, and this is where we're currently at, the United Kingdom down here. So there's a big turnaround, and for me, I find it annoying. And
can you make that, Sean? Can you make that bigger? Can you zoom in a bit for our viewers as well? Because I'm struggling to see it too.
How's that?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, mate.
So what annoys me about this, and I'm going to try not to get too emotive, I'm just going to try to stay rather factual about this, is at this point, and I think you, in your family, you know people who are Swedish, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So Sweden is always the example because, well, do you know why people reference Sweden in this coronavirus piece?
My hunch is that because they were very loose on lockdown in comparison, it was kind of like, we don't want to tell the people what to do, largely speaking. I think in Stockholm, they had some restrictions in place, but outside of that, they were just carrying on as per normal. Would that be correct? Or
I think so. There may be more restrictions than I know about, but they're going with the method called herd immunity. Yeah. So they're trying to make sure that the population gets it, and there's immunity built up, and it just, instead of it going up and down, it sort of stays level at a higher point. So I don't know where Sweden sits on here. It's not in here, but Sweden actually haven't gone up massively. I personally think that's because, and you've been, that communities are fairly spread out outside of the few towns. So it's quite easy to stay away from the coronavirus in some areas and still be out and about and doing your daily business. So I think where you've been, it's pretty remote. And even if you went into the shops, it wouldn't be like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. So I've been to the Stockholm, the city centre, and it's much like many others. Probably not as heaving as London, New York, Paris, but it's a busy city centre. So that would probably be largely like what most of the world are experiencing. But where I've been as well is about halfway up Sweden, which is classed as the north of Sweden. And I mean, you've got to drive a couple of hours to get to a shop, and that they have just, I know that they've been cracking on as normal, and I think the cases are very sparse up there, and it's very easy to be isolated or keep your distance.
So at this point, so the UK, I think it was about March, and I'm actually going to change my screen here. Let me just turn this turn this off for a second, because I want to share where we're at statistically now. Okay. And from what we've done, or where we're at right now, the United Kingdom in March. So if we're going to use them as the comparison piece, in March went into what is lockdown. And from there, the idea, would you agree the idea of lockdown is to slow or stop the spread so that we can kind of get back to business as usual?
Yeah, I think my understanding was it was based around the NHS to try and keep the cases down so we could better manage the peak influx which they predicted could come.
Yeah, which I think is a key point, because I had a conversation with somebody last night about this. And what annoys me is, so this is the United Kingdom, and I would say you can fault the United Kingdom for messaging. Can you see that okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay. So you can fault the United Kingdom maybe for some elements of messaging. And there's certain things I think that the United Kingdom had to do because of limitations. So testing is poor, but the ability to do testing isn't very good here. But the messaging and the plan have been pretty straightforward. We were going to lock down, then we're going to do a phased return. If R, or the infection rate, goes above a certain number, we're going to go ahead and roll back some of those freedoms, and we're going to just sort of manage it. And if we compare this to the United States, so this is where the United States is now. And I was saying to somebody last night, if I was a bar owner in America right now, I would be absolutely livid. Because the United States spent, I think they gave out £1,000 checks or $1,200 checks to every citizen to get through this period. Whereas the UK did an 80% salary. How did they word it?
Up salary, to $2,500.
Yeah, up to $2,500. They would pay 80% of your salary, up to $2,500 each month. So the package they gave wasn't great, but there's a lot of people in America. It's quite complex. They gave money to a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses went under, and they went into this plan where let's go ahead and lock down and deal with mitigation. And then at about sort of June, I think it was about early June, the president had been pushing to open up the country as quickly as possible. And they've since opened up, and now we're in this position. And if I was a restaurant owner or owned a pub or a hair salon or a gym, I'd be absolutely livid, because all of this work here and all the money spent and all the businesses sacrificed, it means F all. Because now we're here, and all the money and all the resource that was spent here is wasted. And for me, that's a personal thing, because now this is potentially impacting my ability to go home. So I'm finding this quite annoying, because it's not only that the government are not following a consistent message like in the UK. So you can fault them in the UK, but it's been consistent. In the US, they've said, okay, we're not going to do herd immunity like they're doing in Sweden. That's the president of the United States said that's a horrible, awful word. I don't want to use that when he was referring to herd immunity. And then at this point, they're saying we just need to get everyone back to work now. We just need to open up and get everyone back to work. And even the science, the figures that they created, so they came out with guidelines to open up for each state. Each state that's opened up hasn't met the guidelines. And they haven't met those guidelines because the government that set up those guidelines has been encouraging them to open up as soon as they can. So here's where we find them here. And I find that frustrating.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And the other thing, just I wanted to get your take on this, because I did find a video here. So we're in this position now. The president, or the U.S., the government, the president, we're having an election coming up. And as part of that election, the president likes to do these big rallies, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
And in these rallies, so he decided at about this point, I think it would have been maybe even last week, at about this point in Tulsa, he decided we're going to go into an arena. They made it clear that we're not wearing masks. It's a First Amendment right. Americans can choose. They have the freedom to choose to not wear masks. A lot of Americans think masks are a big load of baloney as far as preventing transmission. So they've made that determination. And the government hasn't necessarily backed these sort of mitigation things. And they had their rally. Now, Florida has had 5,000 cases a day now. And now they're trying to have another rally in Florida in an arena, close quarters, no masks. And I just don't understand it. I don't understand how this is. So this leads me to the vice president of the United States,
Okay.
And this was a couple days ago, and I'm curious as to what you actually. I need to pull this down so I can put it back up with sound. Bear with. There we go. Share audio. So we haven't shared audio on the stream yet.
Yeah, this will be the first.
So let me know if you can hear it.
Yes.
I can't. You can. I can't hear it. Hold on. I know why. Hold on. This is I'm doing such a good job here. Okay, I'm going to try again. I hear it.
I don't hear anything.
At all.
No. Was there something happening then?
There's a question. Yeah, it's very quiet, so I don't know if let me play it out here, and I'll when Vice President Pence starts talking, let me know if you can hear that. Nothing at all.
No. No.
I should be hearing it. Let me pull that back again.
What you had the first time around, I could hear something going on in the background.
And this is all part of us getting better.
Of course.
Share audio.
It's our training.
All right, let me try again.
I was going to say, failing that, Sean, you could play it for me, and then you go blind, and then at least the end user can hear it. And
hear anything?
I can't hear the question.
I'll repeat it because it's quite light.
Okay.
So just to reiterate what she's asking, which I think is a really valid question. Essentially, she's saying, okay, so we've talked about the things we need to do to mitigate. We've talked about not gathering in large crowds. We've talked about social distancing and safe measures. Why is it okay for you to hold a campaign rally? I think that's a fair question. I don't think that's a right-wing or left-wing question.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, the freedom of speech, the right to peaceably assemble is enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. And we have an election coming up this fall. And President Trump and I believe that taking proper steps, as we created screening at recent events and giving people the very best counsel that we have, we still want to give people the freedom to participate in the political process. And we respect that. I was pleased to see that now the better part of a week since we were in Oklahoma, I think their positivity rate is actually declined as of today. And that's a great testament to the fact that people are using common sense. They're being responsible. They know and understand what's happening in the community in which they live. And our emphasis today is really to say that we think it's most helpful if the American people understand that what we're seeing across the South today is really outbreaks. There are outbreaks that are in specific counties. In some cases, there are outbreaks that are in specific communities. And we've surged CDC personnel, HHS personnel. I didn't mention before, but 3 weeks ago when we were seeing similar activity in North Carolina and Alabama, we sent personnel into those states, and we've actually seen declining numbers beginning in both of those states. So the important thing is that not one size fits all. The overall guidance to every American to practice good hygiene, to practice the measures that we recommended at home and at work stand. But our focus today is to make sure that in those areas of the country where we're seeing a significant not only increase in cases, but an increase in positivity level, that the American people know just how important it is to listen to what their state and local health officials are directing them to do.
So what are your, the reason I like sharing these things with you is you're not American, if anybody couldn't tell.
Yeah, true.
And given that you're seeing this for the first time as an outsider who isn't influenced by the fake news media, which is something that I hear all the time, what did you think about that if you were an American citizen?
So I'm confused from what you were telling me with the rates going up. When did you say this was? A week ago?
So this was this week actually. Hold on. This was this week.
This is this week. So the first thing that kind of got me, because he was speaking very confidently about the fact that cases are decreasing and they're on top of this, and this isn't something to necessarily be worrying about. So that made me think that, okay, I thought that would be a worse answer from the build-up, from it coming forward. It sounded like what you reiterated as far as the question goes is a very sensible question. And his response, in summary, is what? That really we're going to take the American, whatever it was, the Fifth and the First Amendment. The Fifth is keeping quiet, isn't it? It's the opposite. So yeah, the opportunity of free speech, and they're going to do it within. They're going to be sensible, use our own judgment on that. So if cases are spiking in the background as this is happening, that's concerning because someone's off. Either the data that you're receiving or he's receiving, there's some inconsistency with that. But he actually, from my end, I think answered it fairly well, in that they're going to try and use judgment. He didn't really answer the original question about housing. Yeah, I think he kind of talked more generically, but rather than the actual conference itself. Yeah. But I don't. He said they've got screening in place. It sounded okay as an answer, to be frank with you, mate. I wouldn't kind of. I don't know the data, so that's different. That's different, but I wouldn't be upset by that, and I wouldn't be kind of totally confident by it either. Really. Yeah, I'm interested to get your thoughts.
I think so. From my view, and there was a follow-up question there, and they essentially asked him, so why are you not part of the problem by having these large gatherings that create these spikes? Why are you? Because they referenced, people that are not following the social guidelines, social distancing, and even wearing masks, which the CDC is not suggesting, but they're telling people you need to wear masks in those sort of situations, public transportation, things of that nature. Yeah. And I agree with you in a sense that I think he did a good job of not answering the question and sounding somewhat knowledgeable, which unlike I think the president, he just sort of riffs on whatever's on his brain. And my issue isn't with the screen, because they're not going to be able to screen everybody going into the arena. They're not. You screen somebody. How long did it take Lou to get her test back?
Was it 48 within 48 hours? I think.
Yeah. So they're screening the people that are going to be near. Yeah,
that was up the nose and down the throat.
Down the throat, which is there's a few tests I think in America, one of which isn't very good and it comes back in 15 minutes, and there's the other one which is the nose and throat swab, which is the most accurate to date. They're not going to be. They're only going to be screening the people that are going to be in contact with the president, and even then, the president is at risk because he's in an arena full of aerosol.
Yeah, people cheering. Yeah, like that's how. Sneezing, coughing, shouting is how you're going to spread it.
Yeah. So the issue I have is sort of a double standard, because part of the government's saying one thing, and then the vice president's up there saying, yeah, those places, they're having outbreaks, as if an outbreak is sort of an instantaneous event. Like there was no events that led up to an outbreak. Yeah. And they're organizing events that I think a lot, I can't speak on behalf of a scientist or a doctor, but I think a lot of doctors or virologists would say, well, if we want to create an outbreak, what's the best way to do it? Why don't we hold a massive rally in a state where there's more cases spiking per day than anywhere else in the country? Sorry, the world, maybe even. And that's frustrating.
The thing I want to make on this, Sean, the point that came across is that they're not taking it seriously enough. So, he seemed to, just be basically, it's okay. It's kind of, it isn't too bad a situation. We're going to, use caution. I'm a big fan of the UFC, and sport has been, off, which has been one of my nightmares. I absolutely love sport.
Yeah.
And UFC were the first sport to go live, and they got hammered for it. But the way they went about it was so great, because it's like the way I'm connecting this, Sean, and bringing this in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've lost you there, mate. The video.
No, I'm still here. The video seems to have gone out. Keep talking. I can hear you.
What I really loved about it is they went on the offensive of making sure they're putting all these measures in place for it to be legit. So they restricted the amount of cornermen that can go in. They restricted the amount of people that can go. They restricted the arena. They've got a small arena. There's only a certain amount of people in there. The commentators had to be separated. Every single person in that venue, staff and everyone, had to be tested. Anyone that reported taken home. And they conducted everything. They went through all the steps. They didn't do any face-to-face. Actually, I tell a lie. The first one they did, they shook hands. Joe Rogan shook the hands of someone, and there's a massive complaint about that. Although both have been tested. Both are clear as far as they're concerned. And, you could say that they're safe, or safer at least. They then went, and they now do kind of like Skype interviews with the fighters after. So my point being is that they've gone about this, and they've gone about it on the aggressive. They've been really proactive and putting those measures in place to kind of minimize the chance. You can't 100% reduce it, but what you can do is make significant steps to reduce it. So what I wasn't hearing there necessarily was really compelling ways that they're going to go about and reduce that. It was a little bit woolly on that end.
That's a really good segue, because there was one thing I was speaking about last night that I think really is exactly the kind of thing. And I don't mean to go too far down the political rabbit hole. It's something I get sort of wrapped up in, but it does very much link into an interesting conversational point from a bearded philosophy standpoint. And that is, what is the right thing as far as society with something like this? So the conversation I had with somebody last night who was a bit more reasonable, but in disagreement with sort of what I think, people are going to get it anyway. Why should we make, people are going to get sick. Why should the economy suffer? Why should people suffer? And we should just pretty much go ahead and open up. And it got me to thinking, because I think that's a reasonable thing to think, but I think there's inherent problems with that. I mean, do you think that we should just open up? Do you think that that's something that's a reasonable thing to do? Or do you think in the UK we're doing it generally okay? I don't know what your view is on that.
Yeah, happy to share it, mate. I would be of towards the end that we need to be opening up, but I think we should also go down the path of being more specific and vigilant about how we do that. I think we differ on it, mate. I think this is something that, where I'm concerned, for example, I use my mum as an example. She's really suffering right now, and she has an illness which means that she's in the percentage of people that are at higher risk of if she gets COVID. It's a bit of an issue. So to work, she's actually been segregated from some of her colleagues. It's to that extent. But so there would be a cost to her getting COVID potentially. However, there seems to be a very much under narrated cost to this lockdown, and the percentage of people that are falling down from it is small in comparison to the cost of what's happening on the other side as far as mental health alone. But things like my uncle, who passed away sadly a couple of months ago, he had cancer. He had cancer last year and was given all clear, and it came back quite aggressively. And because hospitals were shut down, he couldn't get in as frequently to get this checked because of what was happening. Now, I don't think the end result would have differed, but I think there's a potential that actually the feedback was he responded very well to chemo, and that there is a possibility that it would have extended his life further, if not, maybe by some degree. We'll never know that. But so that, I think we have to look at open up. I'm unequivocal about that. But I don't think we should just be, right, we're back to normal tomorrow, everyone do what you do. Let's try and put some measures in place, such as, what is the situation with masks? What is the situation with social distancing? And trying to, I don't know if you do curfews or what, but people that feel vulnerable and people that are in that risk category, or just genuinely people that, are scared of this, I don't think there should be any pressure for them to go back to work. But I feel that people like myself who are young, fit, healthy, the likelihood is I will be fine. So let me work. I mean, it's not a problem for me because I can work, but there are people out there suffering that can't work. Let them work if they're fit, healthy, and confident to do so. And let's do so responsibly and help them do it responsibly.
Yeah, I don't think we differ as much. I think.
Oh no? Okay.
Well, the only reason I say that is I don't have a problem with opening. I think the problem I've had with how the United Kingdom has opened is some of those mitigation factors have been left as sort of an option. So if we look at masks, and masks are a contentious thing because I don't think the science is there to say they are 100% effective. Is this in a virus going to, are people going to feel more safe and be more cavalier with a mask? But there's an element where I think there's certain, like restaurants or gyms next week. If gyms open up next week, I think that's a massive mistake. Because so my concern is we look at gyms and that's going to be a hotbed for spreading. People aren't going to want to wear masks, not be able to wear masks. They're going to be breathing heavily, sweating. There's going to be a lot of potential spread. And the problem I have, it's the same reason you have that problem, but maybe for a slightly different reason. So my neighbor, Hazel, she is 90 yesterday. She's come home after being in the hospital for the last month. And I have no doubt that the coronavirus and her being locked down had a massive impact to her well-being. She was actually pretty healthy for an 89-year-old. She went out to her yoga class every day. I'm sure it wasn't full-on yoga, but it was yoga. But I think let's say things open up and cases continue to persist because there's a lot of spread in places like gymnasiums, restaurants, and pubs. There's a huge percentage of people that are infirm, that have pre-existing conditions, that are older, that are going to be locked in their houses for a longer period because it wasn't a matter of being more strict early doors, getting those cases even further down. Then let's say there's a risk element for a longer period of time. So, for instance, I wouldn't want my grandparents in America going outside for the foreseeable future, whereas had they been more strict for a longer period, but shorter period than not being strict, I feel like people like my neighbor would be able to go out sooner and be back to normal sooner. And I think that's where there's some context missing. And I think with the UK, they're not doing anything that's no, sorry, I'm not being fair. The UK are actually doing pretty good as far as restaurants. You need to have plexiglass or what's it called here? Perspex?
Yeah, Perspex, yeah.
Yeah, so glass dividers.
See-through, yeah.
And outside certain number of seats. And I love that because they're not doing that in the States and we can see the outcome of what's going on in the States. But things like masks or even continuing to limit the number of people in shops, those are things that I feel like maybe we're being a bit too cavalier with, or allowing the beaches to be open right now because there's people going on the beaches. Although I don't think the spread is happening outside as they thought it would. I think UV is killing a lot of it because there was, I think we saw this in Joe Rogan. Brett Weinstein spoke about this, and I saw sort of things to back up that where there hasn't been spikes from the protests where people were yelling shoulder to shoulder outside. But I think there's some middle ground where we probably could be a bit more strict. But I think there's an overarching issue of older people will be stuck inside and people are just focused on me. I want to go out. I want to work. I'm healthy. Okay, but do you know that's not just you that's impacting? There's people now that are saying, great, you go and work. You have a good time. I'm 70 and I'm just going to be stuck in my house because you guys are going out and spreading this thing all over the place.
Yeah, no, I can see your view. I mean, I agree and disagree. I think I don't like making rules based on a minority, and I will put older, vulnerable people in the minority of the whole scope of the UK. I think that there will be people that will be in that bracket that won't give two shits about the lockdown and will go out and do their thing. I'm sure that's happening already.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there are people outside of that minority that are actually pretty good health that will still be really scared about this whole thing and will not go out despite being given the all clear. However, I think that the vast majority, I think that the lockdown procedure to start, I agree on your point with perhaps if we'd been stronger earlier for longer, that we would have got through this and dropped it a lot earlier than what we've done. And I don't think you can really argue that too strongly personally. No. I think it's a really valid point, and that we'd be in a better position now had we done that, because we did see it coming. That was the kind of disappointing thing.
Yeah.
However, we're at a point now where I think we're not as scared about this virus than when we were initially, and now we're looking at the numbers. It's still killing people and still impacting people, but not to the level that we first suspected. So we need to try and I support the view to return to normal as quickly as we can. But for example, gyms, I do believe gyms should be open, but I believe gyms should be responsible. So we should be trying to set guidelines. Actually, we should be encouraging that behavior more. People need to get back to gyms and working out, because a healthier, fitter, lower body fat, better cardiovascular health is going to help if anything does come across with this. So, and it's another place for people to separate. The more places we have open, the more spread out will be potentially. Whilst at the moment, if everything's in lockdown, well, let's all go to the beach because there's nowhere else to go. So there's maybe a counter to consider with having more places open, but I think I want to respect your view. I think it's fair that why can we not do so? Okay, our gym can accept 100 people. Well, any one time. Well, we're going to cap that for the moment at say 25 or something. Let's get them getting some revenue in. Let's get them working. Let's getting people in there, and let's have slots specifically for the elderly and vulnerable for coming in if they want to, or trying to, or key workers. Or my point is, I'm sure there are solutions to make it happen, to make it viable and make it safer. Rather than just all guns, just all open straight away. Like restaurants are opening, and they're able to kind of they have these guidelines. Where are the guidelines for other industries? And let's try to work hard to make that happen, because if we continue locking down, we're not. We're going to be a real shit street financially and from alternative health issues. Corona's going to be the least of our concerns.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with the sentiment. And I think the reason I take a harder line on gyms than I do restaurants is unless I'm eating a really spicy dish, I'm not going to be huffing and puffing too much. And I'm not going to be handing a sweaty towel to the waiter or waitress. That being said, you're right about health. There's no question about health. You're going to be right. I think gyms are set up now. I'm going to be roasted because I probably am going to get this wrong. Gyms are probably best set up to be out of normal business for extended periods of time. For those gyms that have, let's say, annual fees that they're paying out, and I'm sure they're getting more revenue than most. That being said, they are going to be suffering longer because I think it's going to be harder for them to get back up to normal hours. I think you need to get more bodies in a gym to really, turn over your profit, you keep your profit margins healthy enough to stay in business. And my issue with gyms isn't with gyms or with people being healthy. I think it's difficult because I don't think the government knows what's right, nor do scientists.
No one does on the science of it.
As we sure as shit don't know either. So we're just sort of finger in the air and speculating. But I just, what I'm paranoid about is seeing that number go back up. And all that time I spent staying in my house, working on my garden, not seeing family, not going out. Once people get out to the gym, the people that don't even know that have it and spread it, it's for me, I just worry that we're going to see those cases go up and it's going to be an issue. And I think the question is, are the cases going up a bad thing? How small are the minority of people that are at risk? I don't know that it's not as deadly as it once was. I think it's equally as deadly. I just think there's a lot of people that are getting it who are young and healthy, and they're not. The one guy I play golf with, he's a doctor. He had it, and he said, "I've had worse colds." He said, "I just had to tickle the throat. I was sitting in my garden drinking a beer, taking pictures, sending it back to my colleagues because he wasn't that bad." But it still is pretty deadly to the older populations, and I think it's a bit of a sliding scale.
But so is the flu. And so are many other conditions which are going to potentially kill people that we don't talk about and don't have lockdown over. And my concern is that we're setting a rod for ourselves, which is going to be hard to go back against, because this is set as standard now, and it's not as deadly as some of the other viruses that have been out there, or the one that could potentially be that affects anyone fit and healthy. I really worry about that.
But what about? Sorry.
No, go on.
So in the U.S., from what I understand, in Florida and is Florida and Louisiana, right now they're starting to get the capacity on beds because of the number of people that need to be treated.
That's a concern.
And this is where I think it's comparable to the flu in the sense that people do die from the flu, but I think the coronavirus killed more people in the first 3 months of this year than the flu did last year. It is a lot more fatal in numbers because it is so much more transmissible than the flu.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult because I think you and I don't disagree in principle on the points. I think it's just the method. And I think I'm a bit more nervous about, I really worry personally about that number going back up, about this doing, so the UK turning into this.
Yeah. Go on.
I was saying that just represents to me wasted time, money, and a waste of loss of life too. These people, people lost their lives in treating this. Healthcare workers are exposed to more bacteria of the disease, and they're getting more ill and they're dying. So I just worry about that. That's all.
Yeah, and I think it's a very real and understandable concern, right? Like, how can it not? I don't think anyone would sit here and think, we'd be fine with it just shooting back up again. That's definitely not what anyone wants. One of the concerns from my end with the numbers is, like, I spoke to my mum recently about everything that's gone on, what happened with Dad, because Dad sadly passed away in January this year. She actually believes he got COVID and that he was on a respirator in his final days, unfortunately, and he had multiple organ failure. But they couldn't diagnose. I mean, they didn't. His infection markers were coming down, and they couldn't understand why he wasn't feeling better. And he was struggling, and then his breath went, and it was basically they never got to the bottom of what his true problem. He had a few underlying issues. He had a heart problem, which we didn't know about because he avoided going to the doctors. So on his death certificate, a long story short, is he died of sepsis. He died of carditis, something with a heart, and then he died of multiple organ failure. So you got there's 3: sepsis, multiple organ failure, and something carditis. Can't remember it. But COVID wasn't on there, and because they didn't know what it was at the time, we weren't talking about it on the 2nd of January when he passed. So had he had that, would he have been classed as that would have been classed as a COVID death, although he had sepsis and he had a heart condition. What killed him? But the truth is, no one knows. The doctors don't know. It's a multitude of reasons that kind of combine that, and COVID may have been involved, or he may have not had it, and it had nothing to do with it. So my concern with some of these numbers is that it's this kind of cause and causation. The kind of real factors, and it's all something linked in that. Did sepsis kill my dad, or was it the heart? And actually no one truly knows, but you can't therefore state it as 100% sepsis has 100% killed him. It's absolutely influenced him, and it's deadly. But bringing this in line with COVID, if someone got hit by a truck and they had COVID, it would be classed as a COVID death. Is that a COVID death? To me, it isn't. So these numbers, what we aren't taking into account is any underlying issues, because we've got something like my dad was being assessed 24/7 in the ICU, and they still didn't know. We can't do that with everyone. So how are we going to get a true reflection of that? That doesn't mean that we should therefore kind of ignore this and it's not important and COVID's fine. I'm not suggesting that. It's just that this is, I think, goes far deeper above everyone's understanding and also capabilities, that we can't judge it on its honest merits, and that there are links to it. So people that die of the flu had diabetes, or they were obese, or they had other breathing concerns. And did the flu kill them or not? Well, they had it, and it, in some cases, it probably did absolutely kill them. In others, it just triggered something else, which then led to killing them. So I think it's I've not heard many people kind of talk about that, but intuitively that's the way I've kind of felt about it. And that's why I find it, I think the numbers count for something as long as there's consistency, but we have to take into account that there are other deeper underlying issues which are going to sway it as well. I don't know if that really answers the question, but I suppose it's event as much as anything, Sean, just to kind of what I've kind of thought during this whole lockdown period.
Yeah, I think that's always a contentious point with the data and how the numbers are gathered, and it's a contentious point in the States right now. If we even ignore the whole idea about the president saying the more we test, the more cases we're going to get, it's more about how we identify what a death is. Because again, my neighbor, if she dies of this, so she's pretty frail right now. Before lockdown, she was driving out every day. And now she's a carer coming in 4 times a week. She's not had COVID, but her deterioration would have been, according to her doctor, is linked to her being locked down. It's very stressful because people weren't coming in to her house. She loves having people in for tea. She lives on her own. She's lived on her own for years. And that won't be classified as a COVID death, but that would be a COVID death in some ways. I'm not saying that we should call it her death certificate COVID, but it would be a mitigating factor.
It's like a secondary. It's because of something else has happened as a result, which has led to that. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's and it's very similar to how my mum's feeling. My mum's in better health by the sounds of it. She's younger, but still, loneliness, I've heard, is the equivalent of. It's like it equates to something like a 10 years of smoking or something. It'll take years off your life, loneliness. Yeah. So that lack of social contact will kill you. Because we're social creatures, and we get that. A lot of us are brought into. I'll go on my little rant now for a minute, but we get hit by these dopamine. So many of us are addicted to dopamine hits, and social media and news get that. So people they love putting on the 6 p.m. news so they can get outraged by things, and then they can report that and speak to their friends and family and get built up about it. And there's power and there's a rush from it, and dopamine is very addictive. So you repeat that. The behavior to get a rush, to get a feel of something, but it's fleeting. It's not long lasting. It's addictive. It's like cocaine. It feels very good for a short period of time. Then it feels awful and you just want it again and again. And what we truly want is to be going for serotonin and oxytocin, which are longer lasting, happy chemicals in our brain. And, there's a chemical equation to working towards happiness and seeking that. So what is the one way that we can achieve more serotonin and oxytocin, those healthy, happy chemicals, and feeling of relaxed and just that underlying joy and fulfillment, is social interaction and actually physical contact. Yeah. So, when you hug someone, that actually releases the chemical oxytocin. So we just cancelled that now. So we've cancelled the opportunity to unload, to our friends and have that they're physically there and we can actually connect with them, which means so much to us, anti-loneliness. But we've also got the physical contact of hugging our mum, kissing her, and just put your arm around someone, holding hands with certain members of our family or friends. And we're reducing the levels of feel-good chemicals too. So, you basically bring up a really great point, mate, which kind of, summarizes some of my frustrations with this, because we're not really talking about that other side of it. We're very got the blinkers on at the moment, and we're not really looking outside of that,
which is interesting. I think ultimately we have different views for the same outcome, and in those views they're not necessarily that dissimilar. I think we both want to see this end quicker so people can be with their loved ones sooner and safer. It's just the method to get there is it's got to be difficult, and I think that kind of goes back to, that's why I'm not critical of there's people that are critical of how the Swedish government did things. And I think at the end of the day, the intention is the same, to get this thing over with as quickly as possible. It's the method. And people will debate this as if, like, when you go and you see, you go on your social media and you see people, having these knockdown, drag out arguments. At the end of the day, people want the same thing. And there's validity. And, the scientists are dealing with a new virus that we don't know much about. And how can anybody who, posts a meme know more than a scientist who's not sure, because this is a new virus? And it's a frustrating thing. And it's I just wish people were more measured about these sort of things. But yeah, at the end of the day, we want people out and about. So
it's important that both me and you have acknowledged the fact that we don't know, we don't have the answers, but we're trying to reach the same goal as the government, and I get a sense that they don't either. I'm going to promise this is my last rant on the COVID thing, is that I saw the podcast with Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink fairly recently in the last couple of weeks, and I thought Jocko was outstanding on that. And he was talking about leadership as an ex-Navy commander. For those of you that haven't seen Jocko Willink, I definitely recommend you check him out. He's an awesome individual. He is a real man. He's what I want to be when I grow up. He's like just that ideal masculine man, balancing the strength and confidence, and you go and attack things that need to be attacked, but you've got the sensitivity and the creativity and the nuance to kind of step back and know how to tread that balance, which I think is hugely important for men. And he was just saying that we're seeing, and this is all based in the US, but extremely poor leadership of people giving inconsistent messages, rubbishing claims, making excuses, not just fronting up that we're trying to reach a goal. Look, this is what we're going to go ahead with, and then just stepping back. Right, that didn't work. Stay with this is what we thought. This is what we now know. Therefore, this is what we're going to go and try. Keep with us, guys. We're going to get through this together. Some strong message off the back of it. And the way he was demonstrating, like, yeah, that's what we want to hear. But it's just kind of turned into that politician twist of trying to get votes or have a stab against the opposition, or making it about something else rather than just being a great leader and trying to guide us through this, because no one knows. This is uncharted territory. We've heard that quite a lot. So let's be honest and open about that, and let's be forgiving and compassionate and patient, and work with people as we're trying to figure this thing out, because no one truly knows.
Yeah. And I think that's 100% accurate. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of this is the messaging is just all over the shop when it comes to where I come from. We CDC says you should wear masks in large, gatherings. And then you have the White House press secretary is saying, I'm not going to be wearing a mask. I've been tested. I don't have it. None of us are going to be wearing masks. And I always equate that communication that's going on right now in America, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that inability to communicate. And I always equate it to like a middle management person. Donald Trump, I don't think would get a middle management job in the US or anywhere, because his ability to communicate with people is shocking. It's amazing how bad it is. And the fact that that's the leader of the United States, who's pretty much saying, okay, what's our plan, America? Then we have the science department saying, this is what we're going to do. Great. I'm going to do something else and tell my employees to do something totally different, but you keep doing what you're doing. And it boggles the mind. But here we are. I'm here in a safe place. Hopefully I'll be able to fly to New York in November to see my family. Probably for the first time in 14 months.
Fingers crossed. It's tough for you. Like, I understand you being more emotive than a lot of people because of the circumstances. You're over here and you feel like an ocean away. It's hard enough for me 3 hours away, but well, technically I could drive up and sit outside the house. There are ways around that, that make it easier than what you're going through. And with the I suppose the poor communication that seems to be going on from the top down and the mixed messaging, and then seeing a spike, it is concerning. I can totally see your point of view, mate.
Well, listen, I think on that note, I think we've covered it as much as we can. We need to decide on what next week's show is going to be regarding. Bringing up my ticker so people know where they can follow.
Hey, there we go.
So yeah, we still need to decide on what's going on next time around. So if anybody has watched this, has put up with our points of view, or has been interested enough to stick with it, if you could kindly like, and if you haven't, subscribe to the video. I think, Hugh, we need to decide on what we're going to be doing next week. I don't know if you have any thoughts. I have a few things I'm working on my head.
Yeah, let's hear it, Sean.
Well, I was, the only thing I was thinking was and this is one thing I didn't mention, is and I've mentioned it on the socials, started intermittent fasting. And I know that's something that is something you subscribe to that.
Doing it for a long time. I've been doing it probably since maybe 2013, probably I'd say at least 6 years, maybe 7 years I've been doing it.
So maybe we can touch on our lifestyles, because for those who don't know, I was a lot heavier than I am now. I'm a big guy, So for those that live in the United Kingdom, I'm 21 stone. For those in America, I'm 295 to 300 pounds. And I was up to 340. I was down to as low, I think when we were working together, 280, I think. And I've sort of found this sort of butter zone of about 295 to 300. No pun intended, actually. Yeah, I've started intermittent fasting. I had a Friday where I ate because you gave me permission to in the morning. I don't know if you know that. I had my golf lesson and I said, so I should surely fast. And you're like, nope. If I have something going on, go ahead and eat whatever you want, I think is what you said, something to that effect.
You're right. I gave you the green light.
And I had a cheese and onion sandwich for breakfast. But then it was our anniversary this week. So that night I didn't eat well. So I think I broke even this week because I fasted quite well up until Friday. But I'd be curious next week to talk to you about your thoughts on how you manage that, because I'm going to be trying it. And interestingly, I'm going to fast from Monday through to, I'm going to weigh in on Monday and weigh in Saturday ahead of our broadcast. Cool. And I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to try to go from like 7, 8 o'clock at night till every day until about, I think 12 to 2, somewhere in there is when I'll pick it up again.
Yep. Sounds good.
And I'll just let you know how I got on with that, but I'd be curious to hear about your sort of lifestyle and how you manage that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got planned a couple of times this week as well, 24-hour fasts. So I've been doing that more regularly, and I'm hoping to branch into longer fasts of 2 to 3 days. I haven't had the balls just genuinely to do that yet. I still like going overnight with no food. Oh my God. But yeah, so I'll kind of talk to you about the 24-hour experience for me as well, and my first experience and what it's been more like now. So really, rather than just me missing breakfast, I'm missing breakfast and lunch, and I have dinner. So you have dinner to dinner. So yeah, that sounds great.
All right. Well, it'll be again on Sunday at 3. Apologies for the lack of content. I'm going to start trying to get on the socials a bit more in the next week, just to let people know where we're at. I'm going to break this down. I started doing that with our last broadcast, mate, where I'm going to break down little clips and put those on as videos for those people that don't want to sit and listen to us rabbit on for an hour and 20 minutes, which I can fully appreciate and understand.
Yeah, I did see your clips, and I think it's a great idea. Fully support it.
I'll be putting some more out from last week. And I think instead of what I was doing before, just to share the craft behind the scene, I don't know that streams get as much traffic for searches as uploaded videos. These are classified as live. So I'm debating on just keeping this live, seeing how it performs, see if we get more people entering the conversation, because I still want to get people involved and commenting. And I think it's going to be a good couple months before we get people that are involved. I think we just need to keep getting out there and just keep hammering away.
Exactly.
But yeah. So next week, let's do that. Let's talk about food.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it. Thanks again for all your inputs today, Sean. I really appreciated it. And yeah, just to echo what Sean said, please bring forward. We're going to talk about fasting next Sunday. So have you got any experience of that? What has been your experience of intermittent fasting today? Have you done longer fasts? How have they gone? Share it with us. Join us next Sunday. And yeah, let's see how this week goes. Exciting stuff.
And to add to that, if you've I'm going to be sharing some of my previous diet experiences. I've done Slimming World, calorie counting I've been quite successful with. If you have any unsuccessful or successful methods you've lost weight, I don't think there's a necessarily, well, there is a wrong way, of course, but there are many ways you can lose weight in a healthy manner. So if you do want to share with us your method, let us know. We'll talk about it. And I think it's just healthy to hear how people are successful in those sort of things.
Yeah, this is a community we're building here, Sean. We really want it not to be about us. Ideally, I mean, we've got to kickstart from somewhere. But ideally, we want to be dealing with and helping other people and talking about them and their stories and sharing that. So we really do want to encourage you guys to come forward.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us this week. Again, if you can like and subscribe and keep paying attention, tune in, follow us on social media down there, Twitter and Periscope at Bearded Philoso 1, Facebook Bearded Philosophy, and Instagram, which I haven't posted anything to, or am I following anybody, on at Bearded Philoso 1. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll catch up with everybody soon.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. See ya.
And the smooth end to the broadcast.